My name's John Kerr and welcome to VR Underwater Fishing. Just to do a quick video for YouTube, kind of showcasing basically what I've developed over the last 3 years. I'm down on Cromwell Lake, and basically what I've got is a 360, well I've actually got two 360 8K underwater camera systems. This differs to anything that's been done before for obvious reasons. I can film left, I can film right, I can basically film in a full sphere, and I can actually film up to the surface. So I've just come down here for my second session. Unfortunately the water clarity is not great. It was certainly nowhere near as good as it was 3 weeks ago, and the conditions have turned as well. The water's temperature is starting to drop. We're well into October now, and yeah, based on what I've seen today, fish are moving very, very slowly, so decided to pack up early and call it a day. I think most of the fish have moved up the top end because the guy in peg 10s had 2 fish, and we've not seen a lot boshing. They were boshing up there all night last night. So yeah, down in Rosies Retreat, I was there end of September, managed to see the big one, get it feeding on the spot. Basically the camera went in and I filmed from about 9 until maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon with no rigs in the water, which is generally something I'll do, you know, just to see the carp's behaviour and also put to bed the myth that the fish spook off the camera, which in my opinion is a lot of nonsense. I filmed for 4 hours, I would say from 9 till 1, and the fish were swimming past the camera, cruising by, no problem, no issues. I didn't want to put the bait in at that point because I have seen in the past fish spooking off piles of bait, and I think that's what's been misinterpreted as fish spooking off the camera. So with that in mind, I decided to film with Zigs for a few hours. Had a few close calls, had one very close call that some people are saying is a bite, some people are saying it's not a bite. It's actually pretty 50-50 on it. Certainly the fish opened its mouth. The fish definitely went to nab the zig, but it did miss. So in that, I don't know what the interpretation is. Because the fishes went for it, do you deem that a bite, or has it got to go in the mouth for it to be actually deemed a bite? I don't know. Don't really matter. Either way, we didn't hook the fish. Big Nigel, which is the king of the lake, we reckon it might be £50. It normally fluctuates between 43 and I think it was last out at 49.12. It cruised by in the morning a few times, right up to the camera, both sides, about 2 foot away from the camera, and then it actually cruised past the Zig at one point. Didn't go for it, but it certainly had a look at it. So yeah, we filmed with the Zig for about 3 hours. Had that one kind of close call. I was actually in the lodge making up another Zig where I was going to, because it was an ESP Zig bug, black Zig bug that went out. I was in the lodge, made up another Zig just with black foam and topped with a little bit of yellow. Wanted to put that out, but Steve, who it was kind of his trip, was desperate to get some rigs on the bottom. So we put out a solid bag. We put out a little, I think it was a pop-up, I don't know what, it was him that was doing the fishing. He put out a little bag of boilies, and nothing really happened. The fish just moved over the top of it. It wasn't obvious that it was a baited spot, and we just felt like we needed volumes of bait. The purpose of the trip for me was just purely to get footage of fish feeding in clear water. Getting access to clear water has been my biggest hurdle in 3 years, which you would be really, really surprised at. So because I had the opportunity, and when I turned up on Cromwell, I didn't have any of the proper filming equipment. I didn't have my bivy cams, I didn't have any really of my on the bank camera stuff. I did manage to capture a few moments, but it's not easy to film on the bank and film on underwater and fish all at the same time. So which is the reason why I'm kind of making this video now on my second trip. So yeah, we put the bags out, nothing much happened, and then on the Tuesday, so we arrived on the Monday, we fished all day Monday, didn't get a bleep. We didn't deploy the camera until the Tuesday morning, and then by Tuesday, just before it got dark, maybe an hour before it got dark, we fired in some bait with a catapult. But again, when you actually look around the spot, if you fire out like a dozen catapults of bait, because we could see in like a 12-foot circle, it really doesn't look like a lot of bait. It just looks like little single baits, and I suppose that's the whole purpose of it. But again, it just didn't look like there's the baited spot, and you know, it didn't look like a draw to the fish. So with that in mind, we decided to leather the bait, and I reckon we put in about 2.5, maybe 3 kilo of pellet, corn and crushed boilie. And on the Tuesday night there was a couple of fish come in. We obviously only had about half an hour, 45 minutes of filming daylight when we put the bait in, but we did see a couple of fish come in and have a mouthful. And then on the Wednesday morning, again we turned the cameras on. Most of the bait was still there, very little of it had been touched, if any, but the fish slowly did start coming in, having a mouthful and then away, until around about, and this kind of happened all day. Sometimes they would have one mouthful or two mouthfuls and then they would shoot off. At the start when we put the bait in, you could see some fish were spooking off the actual baited spot and going round it, which was interesting. But as time went on, the fish would just move over the top of it. If they didn't want to feed, they didn't feed. One of the issues we did have with regards to rig presentation, but it was actually a good thing in hindsight, was that there was an underwater snag, and when we were casting to our left margin, it was only like 5.5 wraps, but our lines were actually going over branches that were under the water. We tried slackening off, we tried putting putty up the line, we tried backleading, and it was at that point that we realised that all we were doing was backleading between the rod tip and the branch. So the line lay was not great, but it was actually really interesting because there was a couple of shots where you could see the fish coming in under them two lines and they would about turn. So it was good to see that how fish spook off your lines. Now obviously, had that branch not been there, we would have got better presentation. I think the fish would still have spooked off the lines, but they would have spooked off the lines, 2 or 3 wraps further along the bank, basically where we wouldn't have seen it. So it was good to actually capture it on film. Certainly, I don't believe fish spook off the lines on the lake bed. I think the only spook, so if you've got your last 6 foot pinned to the lake bed with putty or lead core or whatever, I don't think the fish will spook off of that one bit. What they do spook off is the point at which the lines come off the lake bed. So it's just something to be wary of. If you're slacking off your line, all you're going to do is move the point at which the fish will spook off. So if you're filming 40 yards along your margin and you've got tight lines, then the fish will spook off when they come into that baited area. If you're slacking off, the fish will maybe spook off 20 yards away from the baited area. So obviously we wouldn't see it on the underwater camera, but it was a really interesting thing. So in terms of the baiting and the feeding, they didn't feed enough to really clear the spot. On the Wednesday afternoon, late on about 4 o'clock, big Nigel came in, and the footage we've got of that fish was unbelievable. It laid out, it was coming in, hoovering, and then just lying down. I think it done it about 4 or 5 times. It was lying down from anywhere from 40 seconds to maybe 90 seconds, where it was just sitting, and it's like 1.5 foot from our rig. So we were freaking out in the lodge, when it first came in, we obviously identified it as a big fish. We knew it was one of the 40s. We didn't know the stock of the lake, but it wasn't until that second day when it came in and started feeding, we realised and were told, that's Big Nigel, that's the king of the lake. So sometimes he swims past, you think he's a 45 pounder. Other times he swims past, I'm thinking he could be over 50. And when he was swimming up, right, like when he was swimming towards the surface, it was really fun because all the weight, all of his gut basically fell down to his backside, and it was like he couldn't get up. But yeah, he came in. At one point, he came round and almost took the hook bait. He was kind of turning right, and the hook bait was here, and it looked like he was going to go for it, but he just kept turning and grabbed a mouthful of pellet and boilies. So, we filmed all day Wednesday, and then when I got up on Thursday morning, as I say, out of the 3 kilo of bait, they'd only maybe cleared less than half a kilo, I would say, in that first full day. And then through the night, we got up the next morning. There was little clear patches where it looked like a fish had come down, maybe taking a mouthful, you know, when to swim away, and it's kicked up and moved the bait, but it didn't actually look like there was much eaten. So we filmed all day Thursday. The first fish in the morning, it was dark, so the quality of the footage wasn't great, but the first fish was in was Big Nigel again. He had a little mouthful, and then we didn't really see him much after that. I think he left. He kicked off out to swim Thursday morning, and obviously buggered off to somewhere else in the lake. A few other fish came in. There was sporadic feeding, but I've not even edited the footage yet. But I've had a glance through it, and yeah, unfortunately we put in too much bait, but I felt like we had to put in too much bait in order to get a proper feeding response, and in order to get good footage of fish feeding, in order to showcase what this camera system can do. Because being able to basically, there's two ways for me to showcase this. The first is possibly the one you're watching just now, where as the fish moves through the swim, I will do the programming, and I will program the frame will follow the fish, and it will follow the action, and you won't miss anything. The other way that you can do it, which is an absolute game changer, is I can basically put it into like 3D, and yeah, I can basically show you the footage in 3D. So you can click your mouse if you're on a computer, you can drag, you can look up, you can look down, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, or if you're on your phone, you can either swipe with your finger to reposition the camera, or you can actually just move the phone and it will show you around the swim. You will see what it's really good in that situation. When you cast a rig in, you'll actually see that you can see the rig settling, and then you can move your phone across, and you'll actually see like the bit of putty, and you'll see the line sinking, and it does give you a totally different perspective in terms of underwater filming and what's possible. I am going to be doing a little bit of filming over the winter. I've not got anything booked in over the winter. I'm getting some inquiries, but most of them are for spring next year. Obviously winter's a difficult time of the year. I'm going to possibly come back down here on the 14th of November for 3 or 4 days. I might go back in the cabin. If not, I quite fancy going up to Peg 10. It seems to be up near the deeper water. There's some snags up there, which is a good place to film for the camera, because it means I can disguise the cable and stuff like that. But yeah, this is what's coming, and yeah, I look forward to getting access now to more lakes, more options, and the plan is to get, you know, some top anglers on, you know, get them in the bivvy and learn from them. I've got rig theories, I've got things that I want to put out in front of the camera. My plan in terms of how this is going to work is I want to use this to basically fish with what you guys want to fish with. So for example, you will get them old time guys that are like, you know, I put out a 12-inch bit of braid with a hair rig, and I've never changed my rig in 30 years and I still catch fish. Well, we can put 3 rigs on the spot, and one of those rigs will be your old boys rig, right? Where it's just a big long KD or hair or whatever with a straight bottom bait out the bag. We'll put it out and we'll see what happens. Do these old boys, are they actually right? Are we overthinking things? The second one I want to do is put out rigs that we've never seen before in front of the underwater cameras. Even if it's unique rigs that people have caught on regularly, that's never seen the light of day, you know, by all means send me them, send me a photo, or actually even just post me the direct rig, and I'll put that out, and that will be like a research rig in terms of how. And then the third one will be more of your traditional, you know, the ones that we think do get the most bites, whether it be your D rigs or Ronnie rigs, the more popular ones. But yeah, that's the way I want to do it. I want to have a kind of new school rig, I want to have an old school rig, and then I want to have something weird in the middle, all your waddy pools and bungee rigs and all these weird and wonderful things. That way it'll just settle the debate. Because I'm filming in 360, if the camera angle is right, and for example, if you imagine I'm fishing a far margin, if that camera is facing towards me, then I can have a rig to the left, a rig in the middle, and a rig in the right. So that's the plan. We'll have the old school, the new school, and then the weird and wonderful. That's the way I'm going to fish in order to work out what works. Now obviously if I go fishing for 3 days and the rig doesn't get picked up, it doesn't really tell us anything. So it's going to take a dozen or so sessions on different lakes to work out and see patterns and stuff like that. But that's the plan, that's the concept, and yeah, hopefully this will take off, and it will be something that you guys like and can almost interact with. The final thing to mention is that I do have the ability to go live directly from the camera. This is something I tested it the other night on TikTok, but I need to do 3 25-minute live sessions from my bank cameras before I can actually live stream from the camera onto TikTok. So I'm going to need to work that out over the winter. But yeah, with that, it will allow us to basically every night, for example, if we film over the winter, I mean, it's going to get dark at like 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever, we can film for whatever daylight we've got, 8 hours during the day. We can then quickly edit the footage, stitch together some of the best clips, which there's probably not going to be a lot in the winter, but we can stitch the clips together, put it onto TikTok, show you guys what's happening, and then you guys can say, right, stick a pink pop-up on, stick a yellow bottom bait on, stick whatever, stick a nut on, or a zig or whatever. We will then take the consensus from people that night. That will then be our rigs for the next morning, and we will then put out the rigs the next morning, and then you can come on the next night and say, see, I told you that pink pop-up would work. Or we'll come on and say, right, Peter, get online because we're going to mug you off here. Look at this, your rig got done, it was shit. So yeah, we want to make the whole underwater fishing, research, development stuff, we want to make it a lot more interactive than what's been done before, where it's just, I've got nothing against sponsored anglers, the guys are phenomenal, but in a lot of cases they don't change anything. They'll just keep putting out the same rigs, and when they get mugged, you know, they'll add a bit of putty, or they'll change the hook size, or they'll lengthen the hair by, you know, 5mm or whatever. So what we want to do is a bit more interactive, a bit more involvement from you guys, and a bit more of a wide range of stuff. Like I say, the ability to film Zigs alone opens up a whole new ballpark, a whole new, you know, things that we've never seen before, whereby we don't even know if that zig bite was a bite or not. Are zig bites that cute, you know, where the bait actually doesn't go in, they just go to mouth it, and that's how you get them. Hopefully over a period of time, as we get more zig bites, we'll be able to see the patterns in that. But yeah, by all means, drop a comment, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all sorts now: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, which I don't even know what that is, Lemonade, which I've just started today because I keep getting invited to this thing, bloody Lemonade, I don't even know what it is, and obviously YouTube. So the long form, the advantage of YouTube over the social media channels is that the social media channels are all in portrait mode, and because I'm filming in 360, when I do portrait mode, I'm only actually showing you, like, I think it's like between 45 and 90 degrees, right? So you're only seeing a tiny little slither of the swim. Now, obviously, I will edit it in such a way that the slither that you are seeing is the slither where the fish is, or where the bite is, or where the bag lands, or whatever. When you watch it on YouTube, you get a much wider range, and so it looks so much sharper. But the important thing is, when you're watching it on YouTube in particular, is to make sure that you turn up the quality. This is something I'm actually going to go back and mention at the start of the video. If you're on your phone, tap the screen, there's a little cog icon. You basically click the cog icon. Is it resolution or quality? I think it's quality. You click on quality and max it out to 4K or 8K. If it's 360, you can do 8K on a computer, and it just makes it sharp enough that you can actually pinch and zoom in without actually losing quality. So yeah, by all means, drop us some feedback, let us know what you think, let us know what you want to see, and hopefully by spring next year it'll be out every fortnight for at least 4 to 5 days, filming on different lengths, different tactics, and yeah, we'll see if we can learn some shit together, because I think a lot of the underwater filming that I've seen, it is very one-dimensional. You can only see that tiny little patch. A lot of it's murky water, whereby, I mean, generally, I've just filmed here for 3 days. I probably won't post any of the footage because it looks shit. But a lot of these other companies, who are pressured into releasing content, and they've put budgets into it, they've put tens of thousands of pounds into doing that shit. They have to post the shit content. My plan is not to. If it's shit and I think it's shit, then you'll think it's shit, so in which case I'm not going to post it. I've done 2 sessions here. One was fucking amazing, one was shit. You won't see the shit one, so yeah, drop a comment, give us some feedback, and yeah, thanks very much for watching.